Hi, folks. With Tacitus today at your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the various claims about the legal systems, not only in the West but elsewhere, such as communist China or the Middle East, Islamic countries, and so on. Now, I read a number I've seen a number of activist sort of assertions in the leftist media and stuff pushed out by activist college academics and NGOs and so on, where they argue both sides of the same coin in reverse. So they're saying, well, only 2% of hate crimes and rapes, this is in the West we're talking here, only 2% of hate crimes and rapes result in convictions. And it just shows how broken the system is and how the system is overrun with fucking Nazis. And it must be, because look at the low rate of conviction. Something must be wrong. People with an IQ of 10 do not have PhDs. Something must be wrong. So they create this image of there's a terrible problem that has to be fixed or remedied. Now, this doesn't include, through different jurisdictions, the number, it's 1% in others and 8% in a different one. And so it varies a little bit there. Also, they don't include the plea deals that go on. I know a number of judges, and they're constantly bemoaning how weak the rape cases are, or hate crime cases are. So the cases are brought along by very activist prosecutors in very politicized attorney general's departments, and they're lusting like fuck for rape cases to prosecute or hate crime cases to prosecute. They gag over the thought of it. Now, because they're so desperately keen to bring again, it's the supply. The supply of Nazis that just doesn't meet the demand. The demand for Nazis is through the roof, but the supply of Nazis is through the floor. So they just have to invent these crimes, and they have to produce ideological sort of circumstances. Say, well, as long as it meets the ideology, we're going to take this fucking matter to court. Now, of course, they've got no facts, nothing to back it up. It's a very, very weak case. And so they're counting on an ideological, fanatical judge hearing the case. And if they don't get one, if they're going to get a judge that even thinks that some of their job might be looking at facts, there's fewer and fewer of those every day, then they're going to lose the case. When they lose the case, they then use that as propaganda and say, well, see, we're just not getting it. We should have 100% prosecution. The fact that we don't have 100% prosecution means that we're surrounded by Nazis, far right. So they complain about that, and then the politicians get out and say how terrible, all these women are being raped by Nazis and we have to do something. Now, most of the plea deals involve non-white people, involve black and brown people, where they've typically got them dead to rights. So there's not like there's a debating point here. So they can do plea deals with those things. Like, look, fester the whole thing. So, and instead of getting 10 years, we'll give you 3 years. You'll be out in 2 years in good behaviour. Go, oh yeah, okay. Now, if you're a third world peasant that's used to living in a dirt floor, and then you've got 3 meals a day and free medical, dental, and this, that, and the next thing in prison, that's not such a bad deal. If you're a white guy with a full-time job and a house and a life to lead and a family to look after, then prison is like, whoa, you're scaring me shitless. And I've seen people, white guys in that position, almost collapse. So, I saw a court case recently where, some years ago, where a guy he'd had too much to drink, but he was not much. He was only a tiny bit over the limit, but he dropped his friend off at the train. So the guy had been visiting him. He dropped him off at the train station in his car. Happened to get caught by the police on just one of those roadside breath test things, and it's his first offence ever, and an upstanding citizen. But he happened to come across a judge whose son or daughter or relative had died in a car accident from a drunk driver. So, and I don't think that judge should be hearing drink driving cases. But anyway, and the judge said words to the effect, and I was in the court at the time. The judge said words to the effect, as far as I'm concerned, you you just went out into the street with a loaded gun and you randomly started shooting. The fact that you didn't hit anybody is just pure good luck. And I think that warrants a prison sentence. And the guy who again, he's appeared in his suit and he had his hair cut. He was an upstanding citizen and had his lawyer there, and I thought he was going to pass out. The colour just drained from his face, and he actually stumbled. Look, he had to hang on to the railing to do. He just didn't know what to say, and that was the sin. Now, when you got a white guy, but when you do the same thing to the third world peasant who's come to the West, we're going to put you into a place where you've got shelter, 3 meals a day, free medical, dental, air conditioned, TV, guys, you're threatening me with what? So very different effects. So the plea deal is something that's accepted with a shrug of the shoulders. Most, well, not all, but most white guys, it's like, whoa, that's scary. So prison is a deterrent for people who have something to lose. The third world illiterate peasant, pretty much nothing to lose. It's a pretty sweet deal for them. So anyway, the judges, certainly that I know, mention is probably too strong a word, mention that whereas it used to be murder and armed robbery with cases, this is the superior courts, they would hear today it's rape cases. And because the prosecution is constantly pushing for detention, putting people in prison, that automatically boots it up to a higher level of court, where supposedly the rules of evidence and facts matter. Increasingly, they don't. But anyway, so the judges are saying that, look, the cases the prosecution brings are just nothing more than he said, she said, and with the minimum level of circumstantial evidence that anything ever happened. And so because there's no evidence, most of these guys are walking. They're not getting the punishment is the process. So these guys are bankrupted by legal fees. They've got the stress of being constantly dragged through the courts. They go on a register and this and that. So it's a very, very stressful process for someone who's been accused on a he said, she said, but just a random accusation. Any woman can go to any police station, say, Billy Bob raped me. And that's it. That's it. It's done. The whole process goes into motion, and as long as they can put Billy Bob even in the same universe as the girl and anywhere near the same time the woman, then that's good enough, because they're taking these cases to court because they want the numbers. They want to show we care about the oppression. We care about these patriarchy, fascist, far right Nazis. So we're showing how much we care by bringing bullshit cases to fucking court. So you'd expect the conviction rate to be fairly low. So I'm surprised it's even 2 or 3%. But the argument is, well, women never lie about this sort of thing. Those guys fucking did it. There just wasn't quite enough evidence to nail them. But they're still damn guilty. And why are they guilty? Because they're straight white male, fucking far right, fucking Hitler, fucking Nazis, and the patriarchy. So it's very much an ideological sort of gig. So the activists across the activist media, the Guardian readers, this sort of thing, isn't it terrible? All these rapists are getting free. What we should do is change the law so that these people, these men, have to prove they didn't do it under a crushing burden of proof. You have to prove that you weren't in the same solar system at the time. And if you can't do that, that means you fucking did it. You fucking rapist, fucking that. So they're very much wanting to modify the law so that the facts don't matter, and they're already heading in that way anyway. So they're outraged that more men aren't convicted. I mean, the conviction rate, should be 100%, 100% conviction rate. So now let's look at the same people, the same activists, leftist activists, globalist activists. So they look at the Islamic courts in the Middle East that have a 99% conviction rate for homosexuality, sodomy, and that sort of thing. This is outrageous, say the same activists, by the way. This is outrageous. How can you get 99% conviction rate? It just shows how broken and fucked up the legal system is. 99% conviction rate does. And so again, it's evil, fascist, patriarchy, Nazis, and far right. They're the cause of the high conviction rate. The same people who are the cause of the low conviction rate for hate crimes and and so on in the West. So, okay, all right, let's look at some other things. Now, there's a very high conviction rate for political crimes in Chinese courts. Again, 99%. Outrageous. Oh, it just shows how corrupt their legal system is. Getting 99%. Oh, it's terrible. But hold on a minute. You want 99% conviction rate for rapes and hate crimes? That's different. That's not the same. We're surrounded by Nazis, and therefore, all right then, okay. So there's a 99% conviction rate for January 6th people who are supposedly, what do they call, insurrectionists, that's right, in the United States. So highly politicized courts get 99% conviction rate, including people who are just wandering around there on the day. They're also convicted for being insurrectionists. This is insane. It can't be anywhere near that in proper courts of law. Oh, no, that's right, because those people would have voted for Trump, and that means they're guilty anyway of something ideological. So it doesn't matter whether they really were insurrectionists, they're just ideologically guilty. So that's come back now to the rapes thing. Well, men have been raping women for centuries, and the mere act of penetration in consensual sexual relations, that is really a form of rape ideologically. So really, we should be getting 100% conviction rate, because ideologically, all men are guilty anyway. All straight white men are guilty anyway, because they're the oppressor class and she is the victim class. So kind of ideologically, we should find them guilty. But what if they didn't do it? What if they didn't do it? Well, that doesn't matter either, because we know all men are guilty ideologically. So if we have to lock up some completely innocent men, because they're not really innocent, because ideologically they're guilty, but if we lock up innocent men that didn't do the rape, that kind of doesn't matter, because it just redresses the imbalance of the previous centuries of when men were oppressing women. So it's kind of a form of, cosmic ideological justice if we put the innocent in prison. And what? So that's the insanity that prevails in activist legal circles these days. That it's all ideologically, gay men or lesbian women shouldn't be found guilty. They should then go to court. Ideologically, it shouldn't, in activist ideological terms. So therefore, the Islamic courts are wrong. And it shows how broken the system is. Rape and hate crimes in the West, they all are ideologically guilty. Therefore, they all should be found guilty, and so on. So this is the insanity that prevails. But certainly the judges I know, they have mentioned just how weak the cases are. And by the way, these are cases that should be thrown out of court. But as one judge sort of mentioned, well, the cases are so weak, I should just throw them out. But if I don't hear the case and I throw them out, then I'm going to come under all sorts of ideological attack by the ideological hysterics, that I don't care about rape, or that I'm supporting rapists, or I'm secretly far right, and so on. He said, so I have to actually hear these cases and go through the motions, and find the determination. But the judge says, I can tell by just looking at the evidence that they put forward that they haven't got the prosecutors haven't got a snowball's chance. And you got to ask, or he was asking, why are they even bringing these cases in? And they're bringing them in for ideological reasons. If they win, fine, they've sent an innocent man to prison. And if they lose, they can claim that they're being oppressed by, there's still too many Nazis, or the laws are protecting rapists and hate crime Nazis and so on. So, the hate crime thing is, people are arbitrarily arrested. It's the arbitrary arrest weapon of choice, arbitrarily arrested for hate crimes. So if you run around with a Palestinian flag wanting, genocide of Israelis or something, then that's fine. That's not a hate crime. But if you're walking in a city street in Australia wearing the Australian flag or waving the Australian flag on Australia Day, then that is a hate crime and you can be arrested for it. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.